Have you ever wondered why a man who once seemed unshakably devoted suddenly grows cold, distant, as though the very flame of his passion had been extinguished overnight? Most women believe such a shift comes from his change of heart, yet often it is not his love that fades but a hidden part of her behavior that silently unsettles his spirit. What you think draws him closer may, in truth, push him away. Carl Jung spoke of the unconscious signals between masculine and feminine energy, those subtle exchanges that shape attraction more powerfully than words, and today these dynamics matter more than ever. Strong men, those whose presence carries weight, whose gaze seems steady as stone, are not easily swayed by surface charm. They respond not to fleeting beauty alone, but to the archetypal undercurrents within a woman, her vitality, her shadow, her command of self. And yet, even with the strongest chemistry, there exist certain unseen patterns that corrode intimacy like a quiet rust. These are not loud betrayals but whispers of behavior, invisible threads that tug him away before he even knows why he has stepped back. The first truth lies in overexposure. When a woman reveals every wound, every insecurity, too soon, she unconsciously burdens the man with the weight of unprocessed shadows. Jung taught that what is unintegrated within us will be projected outward, seeking rescue. But a man of substance does not desire to be a savior, he desires to meet a woman who has walked her own fire and claimed her own ashes. To him, raw need without sovereignty feels like quicksand. You may think endless vulnerability draws him closer, yet too much too soon becomes an unspoken contract, carry me. And the strong man retreats, not because he cannot love, but because his spirit resists being consumed. Another hidden behavior emerges in the chase for reassurance. Consider how often the feminine, uncertain of her worth, seeks confirmation through questions. Do you still want me? Do you love me? Why are you quiet? Though the words seem innocent, to the masculine unconscious they whisper of instability, of ground that shifts beneath his feet. The archetype of the strong man thrives on structure, on rootedness, on the sense that the woman before him radiates trust in herself regardless of his mood or distance. When she cannot hold her own silence, when she trembles in the absence of constant affirmation, she mirrors the abandoned child rather than the empowered partner. He does not consciously analyze this, he simply feels an inner contraction, a restless need to step away and breathe where the air is lighter. Equally subtle, yet devastating, is the behavior of disguised control. It hides beneath kindness, advice, or endless caretaking, yet beneath the gesture lies the quiet insistence, be who I need you to be so that I feel safe. Strong men sense this as an invisible cage. To them, love that manipulates, even softly, even unconsciously, is not love but fear. And fear, once unveiled, suffocates the very fire that first drew them near. In these patterns we glimpse the paradox: what is done to hold him often drives him away. The woman who exposes too much too quickly, who clings for reassurance, who subtly molds him to fit her wounded archetype, believes she is weaving intimacy. Instead, she awakens his primal urge for distance. This is not cruelty but instinct, the masculine's unconscious defense against being devoured by energies that are not his to resolve. The deeper truth is that men of strength do not flee from closeness, they flee from shadows masquerading as love. They crave not perfection, but presence, an authentic woman who knows her worth, who reveals her depths slowly, as one unveils a sacred temple. When the roots of attraction begin to fray, it is rarely because of the obvious storms of conflict. More often it is the quiet erosion of mystery, the subtle dimming of the feminine light. Jung taught that the anima, the inner feminine image within a man, thrives on the dance between presence and absence, revelation and concealment. When a woman unconsciously abandons this rhythm, when she exposes every corner of herself without discernment, the archetypal mystery dies. What once shimmered as sacred becomes routine, predictable, drained of its living fire. Strong men, though outwardly stable, are internally guided by instinct. They feel pulled toward that which nourishes their growth and repelled from that which threatens to stagnate them. A woman who forgets to keep part of her inner kingdom veiled, who denies herself the dignity of boundaries, communicates unconsciously, there is nothing more to discover here. And the masculine spirit, always yearning for purpose and challenge, drifts away, not because he seeks another, but because the flame that once illuminated her has dimmed. This erosion often arises from the hidden behavior of overavailability. Imagine the woman who answers every call instantly, who cancels her own plans to accommodate him, who erases her individuality for the sake of being close. She thinks devotion will anchor his loyalty, yet to the masculine unconscious, it signals collapse. The strong man does not want a shadow that follows, he wants a sovereign presence that stands beside him. To him, excessive availability feels like the erosion of polarity, the flattening of tension that keeps desire alive. Without contrast, without the subtle pull of distance and return, attraction withers. Equally potent is the silent poison of resentment disguised as sacrifice. Many women give endlessly, offering care, attention, even their own dreams, believing this will bind his heart. But beneath the surface, a bitterness grows, the unspoken feeling that she has given too much, that he owes her the fulfillment of the void she has carved in herself. Strong men, attuned to energy, sense this long before words are spoken. To them, such giving carries not the fragrance of love but the weight of debt. And no man of substance remains where affection feels like obligation. Consider, too, the subtle ways comparison creeps into a woman's behavior. When she measures him against others, friends, exes, imagined ideals, she transmits to his unconscious the message, "You are not enough." A strong man will not argue this, nor seek to prove otherwise. Instead, he will quietly withdraw, for to him, respect is the soil in which love grows. Without it, the roots cannot hold. Each of these hidden behaviors, overavailability, sacrificial resentment, corrosive comparison, are born not from malice but from unhealed fragments within the self. They are echoes of the inner child still longing to be chosen, still fearful of being abandoned. Jung's path of individuation insists that one must face these shadows, must bring them to light and integrate them, lest they unconsciously destroy what the conscious self most longs for. And here lies the paradox: a woman believes she loses him because she is not enough, yet in truth she loses him when she forgets that she already is. The feminine that attracts the strong man is not the one who gives all of herself away, but the one who stands in her wholeness, mysterious, radiant, unattached. To him, this signals abundance, not scarcity, strength, not fear. He does not flee from closeness, he flees from collapse. There is another hidden current, subtler than words, that sends even the strongest man into retreat, the silent hunger for validation. It appears not as dramatic confession but in small, repeated gestures, the glance that seeks approval, the laughter too eager, the constant need for response. Though seemingly harmless, to the masculine unconscious it carries the weight of dependence. Jung taught that projection is the way the psyche attempts to resolve what it cannot integrate within. When a woman projects her self-worth onto a man, making his attention the mirror through which she defines herself, she abandons her own center. And the strong man, sensing this imbalance, instinctively withdraws. He does not pull away because he despises her, but because the energy itself becomes suffocating. A man of depth longs to stand beside a woman who radiates her own light, not one who constantly turns toward him to borrow his. The paradox is sharp: the more desperately she seeks his recognition, the less capable he is of giving it, for her need devours the very polarity that once drew him in. Desire does not thrive where approval is demanded, it thrives where presence is offered freely. Another quiet behavior emerges in the realm of emotional storms. Some women, unconsciously tethered to past wounds, use intensity as proof of love. They equate volatility with passion, believing that if he feels the sharpness of her anger, the force of her despair, he will know he matters. But the strong man is not seduced by chaos. His archetypal role is not to drown with her but to anchor himself in clarity. Repeated cycles of emotional upheaval do not strengthen his bond, they exhaust his spirit. To him, uncontrolled storms are not intimacy but shadow, the eruption of what has not been healed within. And because he does not wish to become a father to her unprocessed wounds, he retreats, not in cruelty, but in self-preservation. There is also the hidden behavior of subtle competition, the need to match his strength rather than complement it. Modern culture often whispers to women that equality means sameness, that to be valued, they must outdo or rival the masculine. Yet, in archetypal truth, polarity is born from difference, not imitation. When a woman shifts into constant rivalry, correcting him, belittling his victories, needing the upper hand, the unconscious message delivered is, "I do not trust your strength." And trust is the masculine's oxygen. Without it, he suffocates, and in time, he steps away to breathe again. All these behaviors, validation-seeking, emotional storms, competitive undermining, stem from the same wound, the fear of being unseen. The psyche, desperate to protect itself, crafts masks and patterns that promise closeness yet create distance. Jung's shadow work insists that these patterns must be confronted, that one must look unflinchingly into the mirror and ask, what part of me demands he fill what I have abandoned in myself? Only through this confrontation can the cycle be broken. The strong man does not abandon a woman because she is imperfect. He abandons the field where her unhealed shadows turn him into a solution rather than a partner. And here the feminine power is revealed, not in chasing his love, not in clinging to his presence, but in reclaiming her own. For when a woman embodies self-sufficiency, when her joy is not borrowed but born from within, she becomes irresistible. Not because she tries to keep him, but because she no longer needs to. In this shift, the entire dynamic changes. He no longer feels hunted or consumed. He feels invited. The deeper danger is not found in obvious betrayals but in the invisible habits that slowly unravel desire. One of the most insidious is emotional enmeshment, the silent weaving of identities where the woman ceases to exist apart from the man. At first, it seems like closeness, like intimacy beyond words. She begins to speak of we instead of I, her moods mirror his, her plans dissolve into his ambitions. Yet what begins as unity becomes suffocation. For the strong man, whose archetypal essence thrives on direction and sovereignty, this enmeshment feels like a quiet erasure of both souls. He does not want a reflection of himself, he desires a counterpart with her own horizon. Carl Jung warned that what is not individuated will collapse into dependency. The woman who loses herself in the man imagines this will bind him to her, but in truth, it awakens his instinct to flee. The masculine is compelled toward a partner who embodies her own path, her own becoming. Without that, he senses not love but absorption. And love cannot grow where identity dissolves into need. Another hidden fracture emerges in the subtle performance of perfection. Many women, fearing rejection, wear masks of constant harmony, never angry, never weary, always agreeable. They believe such unbroken serenity will keep him close, but to the masculine psyche it feels hollow, artificial, drained of depth. The strong man does not seek flawless surface, he seeks authentic presence. When a woman denies her real emotions, burying them beneath a facade of pleasing compliance, she withholds the very essence of intimacy, truth. What he feels, though he may not name it, is a strange loneliness beside someone who seems endlessly pleasant yet unreachable. There is also the corrosive habit of diminishing his purpose. Strong men live not merely for comfort but for direction, for the pursuit of something greater than themselves. When a woman mocks his ambitions, trivializes his work, or insists that his devotion must revolve entirely around her, she cuts into the core of his masculine drive. Jungian psychology teaches that purpose is the axis upon which the masculine self rotates. Strip that away and you do not keep him, you unmake him. And no man of depth will remain where his essence is dishonored. These behaviors, emotional enmeshment, artificial harmony, dismissal of purpose, share a common thread: they emerge from fear. Fear of being left alone, fear of imperfection, fear of irrelevance. Yet the cruel paradox is that these very fears summon the reality they dread. The strong man does not leave because he finds a woman unworthy, he leaves because she abandons her own worth before his eyes. The feminine, when whole, is not desperate to merge, nor obsessed with pleasing, nor threatened by his purpose. She is a force unto herself, radiant and self-sustaining, a mirror of life itself. When she stands in this energy, she awakens not his instinct to withdraw but his deepest devotion to stay. For in her presence he feels expanded, not diminished, challenged, not chained. The task, then, is not to chase him nor to mold oneself into a mask of perfection, but to descend inward, into the caverns of the unconscious, and meet the shadows there. It is only through this journey that the hidden patterns lose their grip. For when a woman confronts the truth of her fears, she ceases to act them out. And in that transformation, she becomes unmovable, not because he stays, but because she no longer collapses if he goes. Beneath the surface of attraction lies a realm few dare to examine, the unconscious contracts written not in words but in energy. These contracts dictate that a woman must carry herself a certain way, respond with a certain tone, offer love in exchange for safety. They are inherited from childhood, from culture, from wounds never named. And yet, when unexamined, they create the very distance she seeks to avoid. The strong man senses these contracts long before they are spoken. He feels the pressure of expectation disguised as affection, the invisible demand that he become healer, protector, redeemer. And though he may admire her beauty, though he may desire her touch, his spirit resists the binding cord of unconscious obligation. Carl Jung described this as the shadow bargaining of relationships. What we deny within ourselves, we attempt to secure through another. A woman who has not claimed her inner stability unconsciously asks the man to anchor her storms. A woman who has not embraced her own authority asks the man to validate every choice. And while at first he may comply, in time he grows restless, for he was drawn not to rescue but to partnership. His withdrawal is not rejection, it is a silent plea for her to rise into her own wholeness. Another hidden behavior that erodes intimacy is the subtle dismissal of gratitude. Some women, so focused on what is lacking, fail to honor what is given. They forget the small gestures, the quiet consistencies, the unspoken acts of loyalty. Instead, their gaze lingers only on unmet desires, on what he has not done. To the masculine unconscious, this signals futility, the sense that no matter what he offers, it will never be enough. A strong man will not rage against this, he will simply retreat, protecting his spirit from the endless hunger of unacknowledged effort. Equally destructive is the quiet art of testing. She withdraws to see if he follows, provokes to measure his patience, withholds affection to judge his endurance. Though she believes these tests confirm his devotion, in truth they corrode the foundation of trust. For the masculine psyche, whose archetype thrives on honor and clarity, such hidden games feel like betrayal. The strong man does not wish to prove himself against invisible standards, he wishes to stand beside a woman whose love is transparent, whose presence requires no theater of manipulation. There is, too, the behavior of living through constant complaint, the endless pointing out of flaws, the magnifying of irritations, the steady drip of criticism. Though disguised as honesty, its root is often unhealed resentment, the unconscious belief that by diminishing him, she can elevate herself. Yet the paradox emerges again: the more she criticizes, the less he feels inspired to rise. For to the strong man, criticism without respect is not guidance but corrosion, and he will seek space where his soul is not eroded. Each of these behaviors is not random but archetypal. They arise when the feminine forgets her own center, when she abandons her sovereignty in exchange for the illusion of control. And yet, the solution is never to suppress them, never to wear another mask of compliance. The answer lies in shadow work, in facing the roots of these impulses, in tracing them back to the fear that birthed them. For when fear is transmuted into awareness, the behaviors dissolve. And in their place rises a woman who does not cling, who does not test, who does not diminish. She embodies truth, and in that truth she becomes magnetic beyond measure. The strong man, sensing such presence, no longer retreats. He leans in, not because she demands it, but because the very energy she radiates awakens his devotion. In her sovereignty, he finds the rare gift, love without chains, intimacy without suffocation. Every hidden behavior that drives a strong man away shares one origin: the refusal to sit with emptiness. The human psyche, Jung taught, fears the void more than pain itself. And so, when silence falls, when distance stretches, the unconscious panics. A woman may rush to fill the space with words, with demands, with demonstrations of worth. She may cling harder, offer more, erupt in emotion, or shrink into pleasing compliance. Yet all of this springs from the terror of emptiness, the belief that if nothing is done, love will vanish. Ironically, it is this very flight from stillness that makes the strong man withdraw. For to the masculine unconscious, stillness is sacred. He requires it to anchor himself, to recharge his direction, to breathe in solitude. When a woman cannot tolerate space, when she interprets it as abandonment rather than rhythm, she interrupts the natural ebb and flow of attraction. What was once fluid becomes suffocating. The strong man, sensing her inability to trust the silence, steps back not out of cruelty but out of instinct, to protect his own inner ground. This struggle reveals itself in the realm of time. Some women, gripped by fear, hurry the unfolding of connection. They want immediate answers: where is this going? What do we mean to each other? Though clarity is vital, urgency often carries the energy of control. It robs the bond of its organic rhythm, forcing it into premature form. The strong man does not resist commitment, he resists coercion. To him, love that blooms too quickly feels artificial, a seed pulled from the soil before its roots can hold. And so, he pulls away, not from love itself but from its forced imitation. There is also the behavior of self-abandonment disguised as devotion. She neglects her friendships, her passions, her rituals of self-care, pouring all energy into him. At first, it may appear flattering, but over time it signals collapse. He does not see love, he sees disappearance. And the paradox repeats: the more she makes him her entire world, the less he desires to remain. For to a strong man, attraction is not sustained by her need of him, but by her fullness without him. Another shadowed pattern is punishment through withdrawal. The woman who grows cold, withholding warmth to signal disapproval, believes she is teaching him a lesson. Yet to the masculine archetype, this feels like emotional exile, a barren wasteland where love should live. The strong man, guided by clarity and honor, does not thrive where affection is weaponized. He does not wish to decode cryptic punishments, he seeks directness, the rawness of truth spoken without disguise. Without it, he departs, for his soul cannot dwell where love is used as leverage. These patterns are often invisible to the woman herself. She does not wake each day intending to erode intimacy. She loves fiercely, but her love is tangled with fear. Fear of being unworthy, fear of being abandoned, fear of repeating the wounds of childhood. And so, the unconscious acts out what the conscious mind cannot see. Jung's wisdom insists, until one makes the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. But fate is not fixed. The moment a woman confronts her fear of emptiness, the moment she sits within silence without collapsing, she transforms. She learns that love cannot be forced, that presence does not need performance, that her worth is not defined by his closeness. And in that revelation, she becomes untouchable. The most destructive behaviors are rarely explosive, they are the soft, repetitive patterns that gnaw at the foundation of love until nothing remains. One such pattern is the denial of the masculine essence itself. A strong man is not merely a companion but a force of direction, a seeker of challenge, a being whose archetypal drive is to push into the unknown. When a woman mocks, dismisses, or constantly interrupts this essence, she does not strengthen her bond, she severs it. He does not need her to idolize him, but he cannot thrive where his nature is ridiculed. Respect is the soil in which his devotion grows, and without it, his roots cannot remain. Another subtle but devastating behavior is the endless replaying of old wounds. Some women, unable to release past mistakes, keep circling back to them, reminding, revisiting, reopening. They believe vigilance will prevent betrayal, that rehearsing pain will ensure safety. Yet to the masculine unconscious, this repetition feels like a prison where no growth is possible. He does not refuse accountability, but he recoils from cycles that never resolve. Jung observed that fixation on the past is the psyche's refusal to move toward individuation. In love, it is the refusal to allow rebirth. And no strong man lingers where life is chained to yesterday. There is also the hidden violence of self-neglect. A woman who abandons her body, her mind, her creative fire, expecting the man to carry the spark of vitality for both, unconsciously communicates despair. Attraction is not only in beauty but in aliveness, in the radiance of a soul that tends to itself. When she ceases to care for her own well-being, she asks him to supply the energy she has forsaken. To a strong man, this feels like depletion, like carrying a weight that is not his. He may love her deeply, but love alone cannot sustain where vitality is surrendered. In these patterns, the common thread is unconscious demand. Each behavior asks the man to fill a void, to carry what she has abandoned within herself. He is asked to validate when she doubts, to reassure when she fears, to provide energy when she neglects her own. Yet the strong man cannot replace her wholeness. He can complement it, magnify it, protect it, but he cannot create it for her. When faced with such demands, his withdrawal is not cruelty, it is his unconscious recognition that love cannot survive as substitution for the self. And yet, the revelation here is not despair but liberation. For these patterns are not destiny, they are signals. Every retreat of the masculine is an invitation for the feminine to return to her own center. To notice the shadowed impulse, to ask why she clings, why she criticizes, why she tests. To face the child within who still trembles at the thought of abandonment. Jung's path of individuation is precisely this, to meet the inner fragments, to integrate them, and in doing so, to cease projecting them onto others. When a woman does this work, her energy transforms. She no longer needs him to confirm her worth, for she has claimed it herself. She no longer chains him with past wounds, for she has transmuted them into wisdom. She no longer drains him with self-neglect, for she radiates the vitality she cultivates within. And the strong man, feeling this presence, does not retreat, he anchors deeper. For her sovereignty is not a threat but a sanctuary, a place where his own essence can thrive. There comes a moment when the pattern reveals itself clearly. Every hidden behavior that makes him retreat is born not from lack of love but from lack of inner grounding. Jung spoke of individuation as the soul's highest calling, the integration of shadow and light, of wound and wisdom, until one becomes whole. Without this inner journey, relationships become a battlefield of unconscious needs. The woman seeks from the man what she has not yet found within: safety, certainty, validation, vitality. But a strong man cannot sustain what she refuses to claim. His withdrawal, though painful, is often the mirror reflecting her back to herself. One of the most corrosive patterns is the fear of vulnerability disguised as control. Some women, terrified of rejection, guard their hearts with criticism, sarcasm, or constant judgment. They believe that by staying one step ahead, they can shield themselves from hurt. Yet to the masculine essence, this armor feels like hostility. He does not experience closeness, he feels like an adversary. And though he may endure for a time, the strong man does not linger where intimacy is turned into combat. He seeks union, not war. Equally hidden is the hunger for constant fusion, the inability to allow space, solitude, or silence. Love becomes a demand for endless togetherness, every absence interpreted as abandonment. Yet polarity requires breath, attraction thrives on rhythm. The strong man does not leave because he craves distance from her heart, but because he needs air to remain himself. Without it, he suffocates, and suffocation always breeds retreat. There is also the unconscious betrayal of comparison to an imagined ideal. Some women, haunted by cultural narratives or past lovers, measure the man before them against a phantom that does not exist. Each comparison, though subtle, chips away at his sense of being seen. To the masculine unconscious, this signals futility. No matter how he stands, he will never measure up. And strong men do not labor endlessly in fields where harvest is impossible. They step away, seeking soil where respect and admiration can grow. These patterns are not signs of weakness in the woman, they are signs of wounds still unhealed. To shame them is to miss their message. They are the psyche's plea for integration, for the reclamation of fragments lost in childhood or past heartbreak. Jung insisted that until a woman descends into her own depths, she will repeat these behaviors unconsciously, driving away what she most longs to keep. But when she turns inward, when she dares to face the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being enough, the fear of losing love, everything changes. She no longer needs to cling, control, or test. She learns to trust the silence, to honor the space, to hold herself steady even when he turns away. This is not detachment born of apathy, it is detachment born of sovereignty. It is the recognition that her worth does not tremble in the presence or absence of a man. And paradoxically, it is here, when she releases the desperate grip, that the strong man feels most drawn. For he senses in her not demand but invitation, not fear but fullness. He does not feel hunted, but chosen. And in that rare sanctuary of feminine wholeness, he leans closer, not out of duty, but out of devotion. When the veils of illusion finally fall, the truth becomes undeniable. The strong man does not pull away from love itself, he withdraws from what masquerades as love while carrying the weight of fear. Every hidden behavior that unravels intimacy is simply a symptom of the psyche's deeper plea, to be healed, to be made whole, to be seen first by oneself before seeking to be seen by another. Jung named this the work of individuation, the path where one claims the rejected parts of the self and learns to stand as a unified soul rather than a fractured one. Without this journey, love becomes an arena of projection, where the man is asked to soothe wounds he did not inflict and to fill voids he cannot touch. The woman who dares to break this cycle does not do so by clinging tighter, by pleasing harder, by sacrificing more. She does it by entering her own darkness. By looking unflinchingly at the shadow, the fear of abandonment, the hunger for validation, the terror of imperfection, and by naming it, embracing it, integrating it. She ceases to make her man the battlefield of her unresolved wounds, and instead turns inward, where the true alchemy of transformation lies. In that turning, everything changes. The behaviors that once pushed him away dissolve, not because she forces them, but because the fear that birthed them has lost its grip. She no longer needs to control, because she has discovered her own authority. She no longer needs to demand reassurance, because she knows her worth does not tremble with his moods. She no longer needs to chase, because she has remembered that she is not the one who pursues, she is the one who magnetizes. The strong man, sensing this shift, no longer feels trapped. He does not feel suffocated, tested, or diminished. Instead, he feels expanded in her presence, as though her wholeness gives him permission to deepen into his own. The polarity between them sharpens into fire, not because she has become what he demanded, but because she has become what she always was, complete. And if he still retreats, she does not collapse. For her worth no longer hangs in the fragile balance of his closeness. She has learned that love is not possession, not a constant need for proof, but a meeting of two sovereign souls. Whether he stays or goes, she remains unbroken. She remains luminous. She remains free. This is the paradox every woman must learn. The moment she no longer fears his withdrawal is the moment he no longer needs to withdraw. The energy that once repelled him has been transmuted into gravity. Not the gravity of chains, but the gravity of choice. He is not bound, he is drawn. He stays not because she clings, but because her presence is a sanctuary where his own soul can rest. And so the cycle ends, not with despair, but with rebirth. The hidden behaviors are dissolved, the unconscious contracts torn apart, the shadow integrated into light. What remains is a woman radiant in her sovereignty, a woman who loves without losing herself, who invites without chasing, who speaks truth without fear. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.